This week's sedra, another exciting sedra. Sedra's Yitro talks about Yitro coming, Moshe's father-in-law, coming to join the Jewish people after hearing all the miracles. Hear about Yitro's ideas of how to reformulate Moshe's responsibilities to the people, and then we get to a really exciting part, Har Sinai and the giving of the Ten Commandments, and the beginning of Bnei Yisrael's instruction in our Torah. It's an exciting sedra, one which I hope you'll spend time this Shabbat delving into, opening your Chumash, and really analyzing the ideas of the Ten Commandments and seeing the proper role that they play in all of our lives. On one of the Ten Commandments, we find the pasuk that says as follows: Lo tishtachave lahem v'lo ta'avdem, ki anochi Hashem Elokecha kel kana. We find that the Torah tells us that you're not allowed to prostrate yourselves to them, to other gods. You must not worship them. For I, Hashem, your God, am a jealous God. God goes on to say that the sin of avodah zarah, of idolatry, is a harsh one. And God describes himself as jealous. This isn't the first time we've seen an anthropomorphic use of God, God's character. We find that God describes himself many times with human qualities. And each one comes to teach us a different lesson. The question we have to ask about jealousy is, what lesson does describing God as jealous, teach us about God? What is jealousy teaching us? And we're used to understanding the idea of jealousy as seeing somebody else's object and desiring it. Yet there's another type of jealousy that we find, and that type of jealousy is where we have something that we currently own, that we treasure so much, we jealously guard it from others taking it. And I think that's the idea of the jealousy that we're referring to here. God sees our worship of him, our following and observing the mitzvos, as something that must be jealously guarded by God. By serving another idol, God says that's totally and unacceptable, completely unacceptable. And the idea of describing himself as jealous is showing us the severity of serving other gods. One cannot, on the one hand, hold of our God, and on the other hand, at the same time, serve avodah zarah, serve idols. That's the idea. We can only have one God at a time. That's what God is saying, that he's jealous. He's showing that there's only one type of worship, only one God we could point to at each time. And it is so severe, the sin of idolatry, that God describes himself as jealous to impart that message of the severity of the sin of idolatry. The question is for us, in our times, when we're dealing with so many different issues, whether it be bombings, whether it be terrorism, whether it be crime, the warnings, and there are over 30 of them in the Torah, of idolatry seem distant to us and don't seem so severe, not something that we have to take into account all the time. And in reality, it's true, idolatry does seem distant from us, but this idea of God being jealous, of jealously guarding our worship, does apply to all of us. Because there's a positive command when it comes to idolatry, and that is Anochi Hashem Elokecha, that is belief in God. And belief in God is not simply a philosophical position that I hold of God's existence. It's not solely that I'm not an atheist. Belief in God, it translates into following his commands. If I truly believe in God, and I truly believe in Torah, then I must follow his commands. The two have to go together. And it's almost as if observance of the mitzvot is equated with belief in God. And that's really the understanding of what emunah, of what belief is all about. It's putting your philosophical ideas into practice. This week's sedra that tells us that God is jealous is referring not only to our belief, but also to our practice, and tells us how important it is to ensure that we're constantly growing and constantly observing more and more mitzvot. Shabbat Shalom. Please don't forget to look at other features on our website this week. I hope you enjoy this Shabbat and grow greatly from it. Shabbat Shalom.